Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Remember to Live podcast. I'm so excited to have my guest today. This is someone I've known for a very long time. This is someone I've known for a very long time. We go all the way back to college. Go green.
Go white.
There we go. Today's guest is a husband, a father, an educator with 22 years of experience and purpose behind every step. He's a proud graduate of Michigan State University with advanced degrees from UCF and Nova Southwestern. Now, he spent time, I'm going to kind of share a little nugget in advance. He spent time traveling the world too, which makes this a good experience as we dig into what we want to talk about today. But when he's leading in the classroom or leading at home, he has a very, very clear mission to change the energy around effort, model what intentional living looks like, and create a culture where growth isn't optional, it's expected. So I love that. Welcoming a man who lives what he teaches. We have a lot to catch up on about life, but there's one question I ask all of my guests to really kick this off. And that is, what is a moment in your life that made you realize the importance of living more fully in the present?
Well, that was a really good question. I've I've had a lot of moments, but I guess when I moved to Abu Dhabi, I took my family to Abu Dhabi. We lived there for 4 years, and then we got separated. My marriage was not on the rocks. At least I didn't think so. But my family was separated because of financial ignorance. I thought I was going to make that type of money forever, and they changed my contract. And
Mm,
my wife decided that it was probably be in our best interest to start our transition back to the United States. And COVID hit. But during that transition, I was by myself for the first time ever, like longer than 2 weeks. Like I've always had
mm,
roommates, and then after the roommate, I moved in with my before I got married. We moved in together, and then we got married. But I was always by myself. So I have this family, and then it's just gone. And
mm.
I just remember standing up and was like, why are y'all so quiet back there? And nobody's in the house but me. And
Yeah.
right then and there is when I realized I had to like figure out how I ended up alone. And
Mm,
I had to really hold myself accountable, because if I knew what I was doing, I would have still been with my family. And that made me really reflect, what am I doing wrong in life, and how did I get to this point where I didn't control this moment as well as I thought. So when I
yeah.
realized I was doing that, I realized I was in a hamster wheel. Even living abroad,
Hmm.
I was. It was almost like a life without purpose. I was just in the right opportunity at the right time in the right field, and my family was on board. But when I lost them, it was like, what am I doing? And
Right.
I started to do a lot of research on, like, what can I do to become like better. And I like really isolated my life with focusing on my diet. My diet, when I did more research on what we put in our bodies, I realized a
Mm,
lot of the bad decision making was coming from how we, treat our body. And if we just put
mm-hmm.
anything in it, you can't expect the results to be healthy in the long run. We
Yeah.
have all of this information, but now at this age, being 47, it's like I'm older, where I need to be more mindful of taking care of this, because the older I get, it's not like I want to die sooner. So,
Right. Right.
you know,
You start kind of seeing, oh, maybe there's more years behind me
for sure.
than
And
ahead of me. Right. Yeah.
absolutely. And that was how I became present. I started to really, I just changed everything. Like I focused on the keto diet. I thought that was probably the easiest thing for me, because I used to work out, but I couldn't like drop the weight. And everybody always say, um, the workout is in the kitchen. And that's when I
Right.
realized, if you don't watch what you put in your body, you're going to have to overexert yourself to keep a body that you want. But if you watch what you put in your body, you can just do what you need for proper maintenance. But after I focused on my diet, I started to become more present. Like I was like, what else am I
Mm.
messing up on?
Yeah, you got
And
clearer, right? We don't realize
absolutely,
that
it gave me
food
so much
fuels our
clarity.
brain, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the moment when like my whole life changed. And that was probably 2000, 2019, 2020.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you touched on a few things here, right? There's a lot of people have started watching, like, the Live to 100 show, I think it was called, on Netflix, and like people who've stumbled upon the 5 regrets of the dying and different types of information that really helps us think about like longevity and end of life regrets, right? And if you understand what most people have end of life regrets on, a lot of it is taking like for granted the time with the people that matter most. Like the quality of our relationships is one of the key factors to longevity and happiness and well-being. And so many times we follow the shoulds and we do these should careers, right? We start checking the boxes. We're taking those opportunities that are on the should path. Like if I do this, this is what I should do to get happiness, to take care of my family, to live how we should live, right? And so as we follow these paths, we sometimes get to this point where we're like, but wait a minute, this isn't it. Like I'm doing all the things, but there's no like gold pot at the end of this rainbow they laid out to me. Like, is this what life is really about? And as
Hmm.
we get older, like you said, we start recognizing how time moves and
Absolutely.
quality of life. Like, I mean, when we were in our 20s in college, not sleeping, partying, having fun, staying up all night to study, like we didn't really feel the effects as much as if we did that right now. Our body lets us know the age, right? And
For
so
sure.
there's a lot you start to learn as you start to get a couple decades behind you.
And the benefit of it now is that my kids get the intentional learning that I'm doing. Like you don't like kids don't know their ceiling is as high as their parents. So
Mm,
if your parents aren't continuously finding ways to improve, the kid unconsciously thinks that's the ceiling. So
right.
if they never like search for more, they won't ever be able to break through it. And I didn't realize how many ceilings I had until my family left. So that was like the best thing that could have ever happened for my family. Like it changed the way that I view like everything. Like I'm
Mm,
so present. Like I'm gonna show you how present I am. Like I work with kids and like middle school kids,
mm-hmm.
and I understand why they act the way that they do. Like their
Right.
parents aren't me right now. Their parents are like my parents raising me. And, they're sending their kids to come to school so they can learn these behaviors and be successful. So when I realized how impactful my job was, I realized that I had to be in the moment with the kids, and I decided to like focus on communication. Like that is my ultimate lifelong goal. I'm going to be the most effective communicator ever by the time I die. And
Mm,
the only way I can do that is if I intentionally work on it. And what's the
right.
best practice? Teaching kids a better way to live their life, because a lot of the messaging that they get, like being poor, your parents are probably a lot more harder on you. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're yelling, they're poor communicators. They're using physical strategies to prevent further behaviors, but it's just causing trauma within the kid. So
Mm,
when that happens to the kid, they're afraid to come to their parents when they get in trouble, because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. So who do they get
right.
their information from? Their peers, and they don't know anything. They're the same age.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
Right.
I realized if I could become a safer place, I can tell these kids, I say, no matter how afraid you are of your parents, they want you to get out of trouble. They do not want
Right.
you to be in trouble. Like they're
Right.
your biggest advocates, whether you know this or not.
They just want you to
So,
have a better life than they had, but nobody taught them the tools to do things differently, right? And especially the fact that you're working with middle school kids. Like that's such a transformational age. Like
for sure.
when all the hormones come in and our brains start changing and we start to try to figure out who we are, and we naturally start to bump up against our parents because we have to understand our own identity. But I love the statement you said about our parents being our ceiling, right?
Mhm.
Not only our parents, like our community, because some of us haven't ever experienced anything outside the block. that we grew up
Absolutely.
on, right? And until you can see something different, you might not know what's possible.
Absolutely. When I was in Atlanta, I used to teach at a school that was located in College Park. And Atlanta is literally, I lived in Atlanta and it was like 12 miles away. And the kids were
Yeah.
going to, I don't know, somewhere in Atlanta for a field trip. And the kids were so excited because they had never been to Atlanta. And they
Mm,
lived right in College Park. Like it
mm-hmm.
was 12 miles away from my house, but it was literally like 4 or 5 miles away. They had never been there because, like you said, sometimes their community is their ceiling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I want to talk a little bit more about how I know you work with kids, but also with my own journey of being a parent and having my kids so young. Like I always say, my kids are my greatest teacher. And what really like I've always lived my life to for them. I've always lived
Mm-hmm.
my life to like I have to do things different because I've surpassed my mother's ceiling, right? But it's because of my kids. Like if I wouldn't have had my daughter so young, I would have probably still looked at the limitations of what I was born into versus the possibility I wanted for her. And so I started living my life for the possibility of her. But it wasn't until I had to become my mother's mother and become a caretaker to my mother
Mm-hmm.
that I realized there is a such thing as too late. That I realized, like, oh, there's a point when your brain and your body aren't going to be able to do the things that you wanted to do. And so tell me a little bit about how becoming a father transformed your life and what that's taught you in wanting to help your kids realize like that life's happening right now.
So, well, I'm a father. I have different stages. Like I
Mm-hmm.
thought I already knew what I was doing. Um, even when I took my family abroad, I thought like this is awesome. I thought
Mm-hmm.
that like my kids were going to be exposed to something that very few kids are going to be able to be exposed to. We didn't even think we were going to ever come back. But my kids have never went without anything. Like they can get
Right.
whatever they want, but they don't ask. Like they're really some great kids. And they didn't grow up like me, but I don't even give them stuff without them asking. I don't just give it to them because in my mind I'm thinking I don't want to spoil them,
Mm-hmm.
but my wife gives them whatever. And being a parent changed for me ultimately when I started realizing that the way that I grew up probably was really low. Like as far as the parenting that was going on, there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of like lack of supervision, a lot of me making
Mm-hmm.
decisions that I
Latchkey
probably
kids. We were the latchkey kids, right?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was making decisions that I probably should not have been making. But the problem was is that I didn't get caught by any traps.
Right.
Like I maneuvered through a lot of the poor information I learned and didn't get caught. So having a kid, my daughter, all I was like, I just wanted to expose her to as much as possible. Then when I
Mm-hmm.
had my son, it was like same thing, the same mission. But I was whooping my kids then. Like I was whooping them like I was being whooped because I had the messaging that I need to whoop them early so that it will change the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, years later, I realized that that was the poor mindset. But I'm blessed that they don't even remember
Mm-hmm.
that occurred. But I used to whoop them for real. It's almost like child abuse in a sense. And
When you're looking at it in hindsight, because when we were growing up, like that was just
that was
standard. You
regular.
just got, I mean,
Yes.
we even lived in an age where your neighbor might whoop you, right? Like if you lived in that type of community, the village knew like you better behave
Yeah, for sure.
and nobody taught them
Yeah,
any
definitely.
different.
So that's why I feel like now I'm too educated, not even just with school, just the idea of wanting to become a better parent.
Mm-hmm.
Me seeking new information from other people that worked. Like if it worked for them, why can't it work for me? A lot of people say, it might work for you, but it don't work for everybody. Did you try it? If you
Right.
didn't try it, you have no idea. You can't, and most of the time it's because of the effort that you have to put in. And if you're not consistent on it, you can't get a result of like you were a great parent. You really got to put work in it because we didn't have the mentors of saying, hey, that will not work there. You need to do it this way and you need to watch how
Yeah.
you speak. But now it's like it's so much more intentional. That's the reason why I pod. Well, me and my wife started a podcast because we wanted to give information to people that just didn't have the parents that could give them that. So that if they just
Yeah.
ran across our podcast and was like, oh, that's some good information, that could help me. Because we were completely blind. Like
Hmm.
her situation was better than mine, but coming together, it was just like, we're going to do it this way. And it was really whatever I said, because in my head, I'm the man and we're going to
Hmm.
do it this way. So a lot of the conflict came from me bringing one idea and she's bringing another one and she think
Hmm.
this is better verse, like, not saying versus, but thinking like, is what's the better way to do it, not
Right.
saying that this is the right way. Let's come up with something that we both agree with and we can move
Yeah.
forward, because everything that taught us as a kid could be improved. There was
Right.
no perfect way, there was no best practice.
Right.
Everything could be improved.
And
So
there's more than what we just experienced, right?
oh,
Like there's
absolutely.
so much more that we can learn and that we can learn from other people. That's why community is so important, and why allowing yourself to meet different people and get outside of your box and seek new information and being curious about different ways allows us to start thinking about, well, maybe my life can look different. Maybe I actually can create it how I want to.
For
Maybe I
sure.
can let go of some of those old things that were given to me, or those old belief systems that don't really fit, but I'm still struggling to hold on because that's all I know. Like realizing like it's okay to evolve and to learn better ways and to seek new information. And that, I mean, information's at our fingertips now, right? Like there's so many different ways to connect with people and experience different people and different cultures and different thinking that could help us have a much richer life experience.
Absolutely. But it has to be intentional though, because I think
Yeah.
a lot of times people, they hang in their own bubble. Like I realized, like I'm kind of a strange, and I'm in a strange situation as a man. Like I'm in so many different groups because of organizations that I've been in and different places. So I've created relationships. So I've seen these men talk how they talk, right? So
Hmm.
I can look at what's preventing men from becoming better parents. And a lot of it is
Hmm.
because we really believe we know what we're doing. And we don't know what we're doing.
And not being open to new
And not,
ideas.
yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
without my wife having the patience for me to mature enough to learn how to grow, we wouldn't even be here. Because and I see that a lot. I think, like I said, I think I said earlier, like relationships, you have to have two mature people if it's going to grow. And if
Hmm.
one of the, typically somebody's going to be immature and they're not going to know that they're immature and it's going to cause the struggle. But if you have two mature people, they know disagreements are going to happen, but you need to have like boundaries and rules on how to happen when you get there. Because a lot of times
Hmm.
I used to talk crazy to my wife, like, and I didn't even know it though. It was just my tone was so nasty, but and I had to unlayer that. Like,
Hmm.
why did I talk to my? I love my wife, but I
Hmm.
didn't know she was taking it that way. I'm like, this is who I am. This is who you
Right.
married, and not knowing that I could change my tone and get a different result. But I'm like, who you talking to like that? And she's like, she doesn't say like, why are you talking to me like this? You know, she's
Hmm.
gonna respond in a like, you don't talk to me like that, and it's a conflict.
Right.
So looking back as my parents did how they did, I understood the misunderstanding of relationships, and
Mm.
that's where the problem with parenting comes. Because I'm gonna tell you, if two people knew how to get into a relationship, we would have less babies at an early age. And I think this, like the being present part, we have to find out who we are. And I think
Yes.
that's the case. Like if we are listening to other people's messages, we're going to be more distracted by things that don't matter versus finding out who we really are. And this is what I learned through my wife in this most recent journey. The more questions you ask, the more answers you can get. But if you don't
Right.
ask any questions, you can't get the answers for you to make a sound decision and moving forward. And a lot of times we end up making decisions,
Off of assumptions,
complete
because you
assumptions.
haven't asked and you haven't gotten the information. And so you're having these struggles and relationships. And like you said, even at the beginning of relationships, even when you're looking for someone, because we have all these assumptions in our head, and then we put forth expectations based on our assumptions, things we've never talked about, like coming back to communication being key to living a good life. If you don't know how to communicate, there's always going to be friction and struggles, right? And we're not just taught how to communicate well. And we're not taught to, like you said, give ourselves tools for when our emotions are high. Because when our emotions are high, everything else goes out the window, right? So, how do we recognize and have tools to say, wait a minute, maybe we should come back to this? Or here's my word to let you know I'm feeling this way. So, what comes out of my mouth isn't really, might not be what I mean, but it's just my reaction to my feelings. And how do I, even as a human, start to understand that? Because again, if quality relationships is one of the number one things to have longevity and happiness in life, but we're never given tools how to be in relationship, not just in romantic relationships, in relationship with our family, in relationship with our children, in relationship with our coworkers, in relationship with the stranger who walks by on the street that we have to communicate and engage with, right? I think
Absolutely.
it's so important to learn these tools to be able to improve the quality of our relationships.
Earlier you were talking about evolution, and I've come to the conclusion the reason why we're here in relationships because man has dictated what relationships should look like. And now that women are having more of or being more of our counterparts, like they're just as equal, like we're looking at it. Maybe we treated women the wrong way for a long time. And maybe the relationships that we're destroying is because we're following the wrong message. And a lot of it comes from things like the Bible. Like the Bible is
Mm-hmm.
not in the favor of women at all. But if you're a religious person, men can use scripture against a woman and make a woman feel like that's their job. And this is when I determined this. My wife used to tell me, she says, I know my duty as a wife. I'm supposed to do more, like toward me, like as far as the
Mm-hmm.
relationship capacity and physical and the physical part. And I didn't I didn't understand why she could say that and things still wouldn't change. And then when I went on this journey, I realized that sex, it's it's a lack of discipline for the most part. If people worked up, like if they had sex maybe once a month, it would be more exciting. You would look forward to it. But since men can get an erection so quickly and we've controlled history, we should be able to do it whenever we want when we're married. And we don't put into the mindset that the woman only really did it anytime at the beginning because she really liked us. And like after time goes on, you have to warm her up and get there. She's not gonna just be like turn on because we don't have any discipline when we get erection. It was like, okay, it's time to go. But and I had to learn that the I wouldn't say the hard way, but through a process that my wife, if she doesn't want to do it, I shouldn't have to feel like that's her job to do it. I need to figure out what can we do to get on the same page. But in my mindset and what I've been taught, that women are supposed to do their
Right.
job when we get married. And like I said, there's words in scriptures where people feel like that's law. And I realize that that's a poor message because you're going to hold women to a standard that's very difficult to uphold because they have a job nowadays, they're raising kids, and the raising kids aspect is way more than most men really know. I want
Right. Well,
to
and
say this.
and like men don't also recognize that we're not the same as men biologically, right? We are a different
Mhm.
person every week of the month. Physically, emotionally, how our body is operating, like we operate in cycles. Things are different. Some days we feel good, some days we feel bad, some days we need rest, some days we have energy. Where men operate on 24-hour cycles, so they're used to things happening in a very routine way, just even physically in their bodies. And so I appreciate, as someone who's known you for a long time and speaking to you now as the man you are, and knowing the man you were in college, which I'm not saying you were a bad man in college, but I mean, we were kids. We all know what college
Oh
life was
yeah.
like. And I
But
mean,
I'm so look, I want you to know this. I really thought I was living the life I was supposed to be living in college. My father told me, don't get in a relationship. He was like, you're supposed to enjoy as much life as possible because after college, life is going to start. So do anything you can. Like, have fun. Don't
Yeah.
look for a girlfriend.
But think about
Don't
how
do
that
it.
even sets us up to thinking that we can only have fun these couple years. And then you have to give 50 years of your life away to things that don't make you happy. A
Yeah,
job, a family, a responsibility. Like we are set up to think that once you become an adult and have responsibilities, that you can't enjoy life and that you
no,
sacrifice. And then one day, maybe later on, the kids will be grown and you'll retire, which really doesn't exist anymore. And then you get to live life again and have happiness again. But most of us, especially like you said, with the foods that we eat, with the way that we live, by the time we get in our 40s and 50s, we're already getting sick. So that retirement, even if you've set yourself up financially to not actually have to work, your body may no longer be able to do anything that you wanted to do. So that what I call a someday list. I don't even call it a bucket list. That someday list, because someday is not a day of the week. That someday list turns into the regrets list, the too late
mm,
list, right? And so recognizing that, and even how you said, like, oh, the advice your dad, live your life now. Like, what does that do to us subconsciously? And remembering that we can live every day can be full of joy. We get to
absolutely.
choose. We get to choose it.
You know, what's so crazy is that today is like the best day of my life because I know that I can create my own happiness now.
Mm,
What I know how to stay away from anything that could take away my peace. Before I felt like I had to be on the scene, I had to be any and everywhere. I was trying to balance this idea that that was supposed to be fun. This is my family,
right.
but I ended up finding the fun inside my house.
Right.
And the most difficult part of the journey was realizing that I did not know what the inside of a house was supposed to look like. And I
Mm,
was too busy worried about what was outside was looking like. And my wife was a woman with many hats, keeping the house together. And, you know, throughout time, I've looked at my wife and thought about the way people view me. They always say these nice and glowing things about how they like to look at my family. But before the most recent part of my life, like she kept that all together. She made me look that way, you know,
hmm.
and I'm
Which
so
I'm grateful that you acknowledged her in that way, right? And that you recognize that, because many times women do this double duty and it goes unrecognized and people don't understand how much work is put into it. And so the fact that you've recognized that,
that
and
came
you
through
have
the
and you have a
reflection that I
daughter.
lost. I had
Yeah.
like so I was trying to figure out like because I like now like I've been in so many weddings at an early age, not as much lately, but and a lot of them didn't make it. And then I was thinking like a daughter is going to be attracted to her father, like for the most part. Like something about the father either going to stay completely away from it or they're going to like a lot of the things about the father. And I was just looking at me like I don't want my daughter being attracted to this personality. Like I'm
Mm,
outgoing, but I just felt like I was just too much trouble. I didn't want that. So I was trying to figure out how could I change myself where my daughter would be attracted to what I have. So I started removing all of my bad habits because they're going to adopt your habits anyway. So you can't have any bad habits and they get bad habits because you gave it to them. That wouldn't be fair. You know, they didn't
right.
ask for that bad habit. So I was like, what can I do to remove all of my bad habits so that my daughter would be attracted to my good habits and find maybe a man that I'm trying to become and that my son will reflect the person that I am now versus the person who I used to be.
Mm,
So working with my wife and like I said, she had the patience for me to mature
hmm.
because before they left, she told me that when I came back, I only had 6 months.
Mm,
And I didn't even know that. And she told me it was just like she didn't like how I spoke to her. She didn't like how we handled tough conversations. She didn't like how I turned things off because I didn't want to talk about something.
hmm.
And but I learned that while we were apart. So I had
Yeah.
time to get my mind together on what could I do to avoid any of those situations because this is my family. I'm not about to lose it because I don't know how to
Yeah.
communicate.
Yeah.
And
Let
that's
me
when I
let me
realized.
point out something to you
Uh-huh.
that I don't even know if you've connected the dots on yet, right? A little while ago you said like you didn't know what the inside of your house should look like
Mm-hmm.
because you were worried about what's going on outside the house. And it took the house, the inside of that house going away for you to figure out what the inside of your house looked like, right? In who
Mm-hmm.
you are. And like a lot of us don't recognize the metaphor, the parallel to that of like, there's our physical household and our
Mm-hmm.
family, but then there's the house of ourselves. And how many of us don't know what the inside of our house looks like because we're too worried about everything outside of us. We're too worried about what everybody else looks like. We're too worried about comparing things. We're too worried about living up to this expectation or this should, or what do I look like, or who's going to judge me, or what do they think, right? Or these unrealistic expectations and habits that you say have been passed on to us without being like, but wait a minute, I don't have to choose all of this stuff. Like I can clean house
You can.
and I could buy new furniture and I could repaint the walls. I can knock down some walls if I need to.
And the benefit of what you just said, I've lived in so many different places that I've seen the transition of who I became. Like there were parts of me that I didn't like anymore. And I was like, I don't want anybody to ever know that I used to do this. And then like up until this point, it's so crazy. When I mention the person that I used to be to new people, they have no idea or even believe that I was capable of
Mm,
being the person that I used to be. And to me, I feel like when anybody, like no matter what, I'm gonna tell you I've gotten whenever through at any point in my day, I feel like anybody could will drop in and watch me because I am going to do the best thing, the right thing with the information that I have. I'm not trying to take advantage of anybody. I only want to learn and share information. I used to have a problem with giving unsolicited advice because I had so much growth. I wanted
mm,
to just share. It was like I had a new toy, and I was like, "You will love this. I promise you." I have a
yeah.
different appreciation for life. Like I go to work knowing that I'm going to get better at something. I'm going to practice. I'm going to be intentional, and maybe one day, 10 years from now, one of the kids that I taught said, "Mr. Lewis said my effort will change my results." I put that work in and everything changed. And that is the energy that I have now, like for everything. Like right now, like I was so excited about this podcast because I get to share things that I've learned. I get to
Mm-hmm.
like try to share this energy because I'm telling you, it's like my coworkers, they always say, Mr. Lewis, you're so happy. I'm like, if you knew how important today was, you'd be happy too. But they're caught up in this
Yeah.
hamster wheel and they don't know how to get out.
Yeah. Say that. See that part. If you knew how important today was, because we don't get it back. Like
Correct.
it's like the only thing that's real is today.
Right
Like
now.
yesterday's gone. We can't go back there. Tomorrow, we have no idea. Like right now, in this very moment, is the only thing that's real. So are we showing up to it or are we wasting it?
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of days, one of the things I'm really big on, and people who follow the podcast or who've ever worked with me, is how we live our days, right? That's so important in showing up to life and remembering to live. And I'm very big on like the structure of our day. I'm big on making sure you wake up and fill your cup first, right? You can't pour
Mm-hmm.
from an empty cup. So how do you fill your cup first? How do you come back to yourself at the end of the day, let go of everything else that's not yours so you can rest, right? And so you can do it again, because when you get the beginning and the end right, that middle part becomes a lot easier and you can show up to it better. And I know you're
Absolutely.
also someone who believes in the power of like routines
Definitely.
and giving yourself structure to live within so that you can live more fully. So share a little bit more about your ideas on the power of routines.
Well, I'll tell you this. And I'll say this. My wife told me, she said, John, you're lucky because you didn't lose your family to grow up.
Mm,
A lot of men lose their families and it's too late. And you got COVID. Like I was an administrator, so I was at home and I was like, I need a routine. Okay, this is where it came from because I used to wonder, like, why am I not rich? Why am I not rich like LeBron James and Dave Chappelle? And I was like, they can do whatever. And I was like, why? What did I miss?
mm-hmm,
And I started to study professional athletes and people that were good in their craft. And I realized that they had a routine to work on their craft. every single day, even when they were
Mm-hmm.
sick, when they were like out on vacation. That was a part of like brushing their teeth. It was
Mm-hmm.
like the only way I can live this life is if I become so good that somebody would pay me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I decided to, how can I get good in an area. So I started focus, like I said, communication. I started focusing on languages. I study Arabic, Korean, Spanish, and German every morning. I wake up at 4 o'clock every morning. I study that. Then I work on chess, because at some point in my life, I want to become a grandmaster in chess. I don't,
Oh,
not
that's
a
cool.
grandmaster. I want to compete
Yeah.
against a grandmaster in chess. I know what it takes to be that good, but
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know the game well enough. But I know that I can't do it unless I'm intentional about it. So I
Mm-hmm.
do that. I meditate, and I have this little workout. And all of this is before I go to work. This has
Right.
been going on for like 6 years now. And I've fallen in love with this routine because I've planted so many seeds along my journey that people are recognizing things that I didn't even know I was developing because of my routine. And it was all through the power of communication. Like, I didn't realize how bad I was at communicating. Just because I
Mm.
said it this way doesn't mean it was received that way.
Right.
And
That part.
yes, so me and my wife, we have a routine. So that's my morning routine, like you said. And then
Mm-hmm.
I go to work, and I try to practice everything as far as being silent when I'm supposed to, processing information, ask 3 questions before I even assume anything,
Right.
so that I can truly understand what you're asking or what you're even talking about. Because again, unsolicited advice can turn down a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I go through the day, and when I get out of work, it's between like 4 and 6. If I'm not cooking dinner, I'm working on being creative on my podcast, or
Mm-hmm.
coming up with ideas on how I can improve on the presentation of my material. But about 5:36, we have dinner as a family. We'll have a conversation. If we're not going to watch anything or play games, we've been playing games a lot lately because my daughter is leaving, and we
Mm.
just been trying to
That's good.
maximize the times we have, because we know that when she leaves, we're different people, and she's going to be a
Yes.
different person. So we're
Yeah.
just trying to be present in that moment
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. I love that. I love it.
So after that happens, me and my wife, every single night, if she's not on a business meeting, or if I'm not out of town, about 6:30, 7 o'clock, after we've walked the dogs, we'll have a drink, and we'll watch like a show that she's into, but we'll have a time where we can wind down and reflect on our
Mm-hmm.
day, on like what was good about the day, what was
Yeah.
bad, what do we have to do the next day.
To
And
connect, to really connect. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, so that's my routine. Like, and I haven't said, but I plan on being the best husband to ever had walked the earth. And the reason why I want to do that, because this is the one thing that I feel like I can compete with any man, regardless of skill set. If you're born and you can get married, you can always work to become a better husband. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So, like, to me, my wife deserves that, because I can't become this man without her. Without her
Right.
patience, I'm just a single dude. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and telling people why they should get married or shouldn't get married. But being that I feel the way that I do, she allowed this to develop.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful that, because I have a lot of single friends. They're handsome, got a lot of money, but they don't look as happy as I would want to be. Like, you can't be our age and not be working on something to be happy later. It's like they're in this mindset where I make my money, I want to control this. But like you said earlier, the relationships is I mean, life is dependent on the relationships you create.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're gonna like enjoy life, you want somebody to do it with.
Yes.
And why
Yeah.
not it be like your partner, your person?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all about for me. Just showing people that if you put the work in, it'll develop. But if you don't put the work in, you can't hope that you just the lucky one and got lucky with
Right.
somebody who made it happen.
Right. Right. And that's so important that, you know, we've seen time and time again, money isn't the key to happiness. Now, money can make life easier, but
Absolutely.
you can get all the money in the world and still be miserable. You can get all the money in the world and still get sick. You can get all the money in the world and be alone, right?
Definitely.
Because even if you're paying people to be around you, you're still going to be lonely because you have no real, genuine connections. And some of the poorest people are some of the happiest people on earth, because what comes first is community and connection. And they've learned to find joy in any situation, right? And like
Absolutely.
that's what we can learn a lot from children. There's children who are born into situations that many of us as adults couldn't even fathom living or survive a day in, and they still play, right?
Absolutely.
They still
Hmm.
play because they still look for the joy. It hasn't been taken away from them yet, right?
They ain't been
People,
compromised yet.
right? And I think that's why play is so important, to remember to play as you get older, and to remember to create these situations where you're present with each other and you find joy and you find laughter. And then, yeah, I think that's when the type of money that you need comes, because you've decided what type of life you want to live. And the best life doesn't mean the most expensive life, right?
For
It
sure.
means getting clear on what you want and how you want to spend your days, and then creating that reality.
Absolutely. Well, it took me a long time to learn that too. I remember before my family left when we were in Abu Dhabi, I was driving down, like, mind you, I want to kind of create this idea of what we lived. We lived in a high rise on the beach, and the
Mm-hmm.
windows were like 20 feet tall. It's like all windows, and we're on the beach. And I'm driving down the beach. Maybe I just passed up my building where I live because I was going somewhere. And I just thought, like, we travel the world. My kids go to international school that costs more than my university. My wife isn't working. Like, in my mind, this is supposed to be the peak. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
taking care. And I was like so unhappy. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, that's when I started to like really break down stuff. Like, this is right before they left. And I was just like, I'm doing everything that people say. Why am
Right.
I not feeling fulfilled?
Right.
And when that happened, I was just like trying to figure out, why am I not happy if I'm doing everything? And when I started to unlayer how I got there, and I was like, oh, and this is what's so crazy about the journey. I cheated the whole way. Like, I learned systems, but I didn't matter of taking the long route. I was just trying to get there. So no
Right.
matter how I got there, as long as I didn't take advantage of people, but I didn't sharpen a lot of my swords that
Right.
I
You're just
should have. And
taking shortcuts, the fastest way to get there, right? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was. And then what the biggest lesson from that is, when you take shortcuts, it's probably the most important message for you to get to the next level. When you get to wherever you thought you were supposed to get to, you get stuck because that message you missed because you took the shortcut.
Mm.
And that's when I came back. I said I wasn't doing education anymore, and I said I'm starting over. I know how to do it. I got all this experience. I could do anything. And I went into sales, and I was horrible at it. For real. So I realized that just because I took shortcuts didn't mean I wasn't a good
Yeah.
educator. So
Yeah.
I went back and just started in the classroom and said I was going to become the best teacher that any student would have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would come in my room, or
Yeah.
any parent would be like, I need him as a teacher.
Yeah.
Because and this is what made it so good. I'm over 40 with all this experience, and I got the energy of a 23, 24 graduate. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm excited. So it was just, to me, I felt like I learned so much in this last 2 or 3 years that I didn't get when I was
Yeah.
moving along the ranks of in education, moving up, because I have a great personality. I'll work hard, I come early, I'll stay late, but I wasn't as polished as these other
Yeah.
administrators, and I
Well, you
just
were
got
focused
stuck.
on the destination
I was,
and
because the
missed the
more money,
journey, right? And how
I
many
was,
of us, like, what's the next title? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And then you get it and you're like, empty,
yeah,
right? And you were miserable during the journey, when that's where the joy is. The joy is like learning to love the journey. And what am I learning today? Who do I get to impact today? Where do I find meaning in today, right? It's going
yes,
to take you somewhere. But if you're just focused on that title or that destination that someone's given you, like, look at all of the research on how, like, Olympic athletes spend their whole life training for this one thing, and then they get it and there's like, well, now what? And they get depressed, and they don't, like, that proves like the journey was what made them happy, right?
Yes.
It wasn't the outcome, it was the journey. And I think that's a perfect like button to wrap up the main part of our conversation on, is you sharing that of like how you really recognized how important the journey is and how you're like leaning back into the journey right now.
So this is the reason why I know my journey's awesome, because it can't ever be finished. It can
Yes.
only get better. So
Yes.
I know that it only gets better if I put the work in. And if I
Mm-hmm.
do it every single day for the rest of my life, at some point, I'm going to be so good at it. But not only that, I can work on it the next day if I get
Yes.
up.
Yes.
So, and nobody else cares about this part of my journey. I only care about it. So it makes me happy because I know that my wife will become she'll be a happier wife, and
Mm-hmm.
my kids will have better parents. They'll have a better idea of what a healthy relationship looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, as long as I'm working on becoming a better husband, becoming a better father, I I just automatically become a better man.
Mm.
And if anybody gets to talk to me, I'll be able to hopefully give them something where if they don't receive it, I at least planted the seed where they can get nurtured along their journey. But
Yes.
I do believe everybody deserves their journey. They just have to know that they have to know that they're that important to take it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Man, we've covered a lot of bases today. I'm so excited that we got to have a real conversation, and I appreciate you being raw and vulnerable in talking about the things that you've learned, because many times it's not something easy for a man to do, right? And
Yes.
especially in our community, it can be hard for a Black man to talk about the areas that they've struggled in or what they're working on or how their beliefs have changed, right? Because of the different perceptions that you have to deal with walking this earth as a Black man. So I appreciate and respect you sharing all of that a lot. But before we go, I have some fun questions so people can get to know John D a little bit better.
For sure.
Um, what is one small luxury that you never feel guilty about enjoying?
You know, my wife, we bought a home like 3.5 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, something that time span. And I used to really be into gym shoes, timepieces, nice clothes, like all the expensive things that people used to chase.
Mm-hmm.
And watching how this house has come together, she's done it. I grew up in an apartment my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So I never even painted a wall until our first home when we moved together, and it was an accent wall. So now it's like this house is ours. And the luxury I have of living in this home is that the extra money that I do have, I get to put it into the house.
Mm.
Like we get to make our whole goal is like, so we do know that at some point we're going to become
Mm-hmm.
financially abundant,
Yeah.
and we just want our home to be a place where we create our own mood so that we don't
Yes.
ever have to really leave. Like
Yes.
we can go here. Like we have a patio that we redecorated ourselves, and it's summertime again, and we can just sit on the patio, play music,
Mm.
have a cocktail. The dogs are there, and we could just watch outside and just talk. And what I've noticed, that we've done that with every room. It doesn't have to just be the patio. It could be like we
Yes.
have like different rooms where however we want to feel. So to me, I'm blessed that I can always put something into the house where we can appreciate it
Mm-hmm.
together.
Yeah. My home is my sanctuary. And I think that's so important. We do the same thing. And like we forget, like we can create joy in our own home. Like our
We
home
can.
should be joyful. We should spend time on the things that we live in and inhabit every day. So I love that. Speaking of this, all of these different mood rooms, what is your favorite way to spend an unexpected free hour?
It's I don't really get those. Everything is accounted for. Like I've really broken down my day. Um, so if hypothetically, let's say if I'm supposed to take my kids somewhere and that's canceled,
Mm-hmm.
I can just sit wherever I am and work on different ways to get better.
Mm.
Like I've created a routine when I'm sitting around, I'm not being idle. Like because I feel like the only way that I can get better is if I'm intentional with the times where people are, you know how like you're in autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
So I've created a routine with them when I'm in autopilot to always be working on something to get better. And to remind myself, I have like times in the day, like 12:22, 2:22, 4:44, 7:18, different dates. Like if I do that, I have to like touch my fingers together, lick the
Mm.
top of my roof of my
Mm-hmm.
mouth, and I put my foot in the ground and said, I am in the moment and I am constantly getting better. And that
Yes.
reminds me that I am working on something. So I'm not just like I can't watch TV. Like only way I can watch TV is if there's going to be a discussion afterward where I'm supposed to like learn or share something. But me and my wife watch TV because it's something that she enjoys
Mm-hmm.
and we can talk about it because it's her wheelhouse. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So
Mm-hmm.
if we do watch something that I like, I know that we're going to have a discussion about it. But I don't just sit around and watch because in my mind, I've wasted so much time that I just want to find ways to be a better example to my family.
Yeah, well, and I love the presence practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of like being intentional, because when you allow for and create space for and are intentional about creating moments of presence throughout your day, like you don't recognize how much that helps regulate your nervous system, how much
Oh,
it
I didn't know
helps you, yeah,
that.
like getting present regulates your nervous system. It helps to get rid of stress. It helps to tap into that longevity. So like that's a really beneficial practice. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, we've talked about a lot of your growth and evolution. So, thinking about all of those things, what's something that you've started saying yes to more often that's contributed to making your life better?
Hmm. I'm 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 uh, I'm saying yes to more ideas that may be outside of my practice.
Mm,
Like the things that I'm doing, I've done research on, and I feel like I understand, but I can't study everything. And then I know there's some people that say, "Hey, you should consider this," and I feel like, look, I am focused. I don't need any distractions. I just want to do what I'm supposed to do. But I've been saying yes to other people because, like I said, I have like different groups and I've been kind of rubbing off on some people and they come
mm,
with different things that I may not have been looking into. So I've been saying yes to different things if it can make my routine better.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I before I felt like nobody was really caring. It was like you're doing too much, like you working too hard. You got to give yourself a break. I said, for what? I've been having breaks my entire life. I feel like I found something that I know that can get better and it's driving me. Like, why would I want to stop? And I don't like my wife was worried. She was like, you're gonna get burnt out. I'm like, from what? I'm working on myself to get better. I'm not like trying to make money or nothing. I'm like, I just want to get better. She was like,
yeah,
I just don't want you to stress out. And I'm like, well, I'm not stressed out because I still have my family intact. I would
yeah,
be stressed out if I lost you guys. So I'm so intentional that I don't want this to ever be a misunderstanding again. So
yeah. Well, and there's a difference when you work a lot on the thing you want to work on versus you working a lot because it's a job that you don't enjoy and people are forcing you to work 80 hours a week when you don't need to, right? That's a whole different level of burnout. So I get that as a person who everyone's like, why do you have two businesses? Because I enjoy it. It's what I want to do. Like these are things I want to do at this stage of my life and create and birth things in the world. So definitely on board with that. So this is going to be a fun one. Um, if your life had a soundtrack, what would the title track be right now?
intentional purpose.
Mm,
Um, I don't know what songs I could put in it, but I think that if you do anything you do on purpose is supposed to get better. And I feel like my entire day, I even take sleep seriously. I want to go to sleep
mhm.
early. I want to go get up when the sun is coming up. Like I want to like follow this routine where I am finding the best version of myself
Yeah.
on purpose. I don't
Yes.
want to just accidentally I nobody's going to accidentally become great. So all these people like LeBron James, the best basketball player, Dave Chappelle, the best comedian, like I wasn't around those opportunities to become best in those areas. So I couldn't start at a young age. But I know at my age now, my wife and my kids are going to love me finding a better version of myself. And as long
Mm-hmm.
as I take care of myself, I feel like they will always reap the benefit of a man that's improving.
Right.
So
Right.
that is my soundtrack, intentional purpose for sure.
Yeah. And I am so aligned on the sleep. That one thing, once you're past into these fourth and fifth decades, that you learn is how important sleep is. Right. If you didn't, that's the one thing that even if you didn't think you were going to learn it, your body will tell you, and you
Yeah,
will
for
know
sure.
how important sleep is. Okay. My final question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you remember to live?
Oh, on purpose. Like I said, I have different things to remind me throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I take it very seriously. Because I could die. I could die. But I
Well,
do
we all will die. Let's even
I
reframe that. We all
well, like
will die. We
like
don't know
now
when.
though. Like
Yeah,
I could just
yeah,
die right now. But
yeah.
I'm saying like I believe in God, and I feel like God isn't gonna hurt me. Like I feel like God knows my practice, my intention. He sees me working. I feel like as long as I'm continuing to find ways to get better, that whoever's over me was like, man, I gotta like watch this guy. Like he is really trying to get better. So to me, to remain present, like it's easy for me
Mm-hmm.
because my family's still here, and I get to look at when I lost my family. I was telling you earlier, I started to think about how many men have lost their families and they couldn't get them back.
Mm.
And I was just like, I don't ever want to feel this feeling, and I'm going to my family still. like
Right, right. It
look,
was
I
just
was
that
so
that thought of that alternate reality that could be real. Right. Yeah.
and that's why my life changed, because I was like, no man should ever feel the way that I feel right now without me trying to say, hey, there's got to be a better way that we're moving through life, because we're destroying too many families with the information that we have.
Mm.
And it's not fair to your kids because they didn't ask to be here. And although you're a better father than your father, that don't mean you can't be even better than you are now.
Right.
So it's so easy to be present when you know you can get better.
Mm. I love it. I love it. Well, my friend, I appreciate you so much. Let people know, how can they find you? Tell them a little bit more about your podcast. I'll put it all in the show notes as well for those who are interested in learning more about John D.
Well, I have a podcast. It's called I Am Growing Man. It looks like I am grown man, but it has a big N. So the N is constantly evolving into a better version of myself. But that comes out on every Thursday at 12:22 on YouTube. But it comes out also on my website, www.lewisquad.com. My wife and I have a podcast, but we have 4 episodes left. We're going to retire it because she's not really a public person, but she did this. She says she did it because she didn't think it would go very far. She didn't think that I was really going to put the effort to keep it alive. And then she realized that I really enjoyed it so much. She was like, because sometimes she's like, I don't want to shoot. And I'm like, well, we have to shoot. And she was like, and it just got to the point where
Yeah.
she was doing it for me, and I didn't want her to do it for me anymore because she had already done enough. So
Right.
now we're celebrating these last 4 episodes of our journey. And you know what's so crazy about it? You ever heard of Malcolm Gladwell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Outliers is something that I love because that's when I first started learning about studying professional athletes. The 10,000 hour rule, if you put in so many hours that you're going to become an expert. So me and my wife, I told her, I said, we're intentionally going to put 10,000 hours. I know we're past it because that's why our relationship is so good now. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the intentional hours that we put in has created this relationship that's going to look like that's what I want.
Mm.
And I don't think it's a woman's problem. I think it's a man's problem because most women want this that I'm talking about. Most men don't know that they could feel the way that I'm feeling now. Like
Mm.
men, our ceilings are so low. Like when I say so low, that's another reason why my podcast, like I plan to do that for the rest of my life because I feel like I'm always learning something and somebody could
Right.
use it. So why would I want to like not give this information out,
Right.
especially
Right.
when I'm looking for it on purpose? You know
Right,
what I'm saying?
right.
So
Yeah.
it's my duty to do that. So you guys can find me on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. I am growing man. Doing too much podcast is me and my wife. Like I said, we'll keep them up because there's some good information out there. We have a episode. We had an episode for every week for 4 years, and that created this relationship that the public got to see because
Mm-hmm.
like we were already talking all the time, but the public got to see us in the beginning struggle becoming podcasters to the
Yeah.
season part where we are now.
Yeah.
So we want people to see that. And not only that, I know this is the last part of this part. My kids will be able to always look back and
Yes.
see how their parents were thinking during that period of their life.
Yes. That part, legacy. And
Yes.
yes, that's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, so www.lewisquad.com, and you can find us on YouTube. And I'm looking forward to sharing as much information I can to help men become better. I'm not saying that my way's the right way, but I am saying there's always a better way to do it. And if you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it.
Great note to end on. Thank you, friend.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.